So I wanted to take the opportunity to show you guys some of my more unique pets because I feel like I am fairly knowledgeable in what I own, and I figured it'd be something unique to show you guys here on YouTube. So this is a female Madagascar hissing cockroach, and that is actually her egg case, the Otheca. Females appear to actually give live birth, and though it's kind of true, it's kind of not true. They actually just emerge from the egg sac within the body of the female, and then they look like they're giving live birth. Um, in this case, what's going on right now, she is actually rotating her egg sac and then slowly bringing it right back in. This took a little bit over 5 hours. And so this is extremely sped up. So that way the process goes much quicker, or appears to go much quicker than it actually did. It took 5 hours for her to do this, or a little bit over 5 hours. I wanted to share some interesting facts with you guys other than the really interesting, unique thing that you're seeing on the video right now. So prepare for some really interesting, fun facts about Madagascar hissing cockroaches. So the gestation period for a female adult Madagascar hissing cockroach is 60 to 70 days, and it might take about 2 days in total for all of the babies to emerge. Typically, they will have between 20 and 40 babies, or nymphs. They will have 2 to 3 broods in a single year, but it also depends on temperature and everything like that as well. If the temperature is correct and right and they're warm enough, they will definitely produce quite a lot of babies. And it's not to say that all the babies will survive. Obviously, you always have a chance of some babies not making it. That's just pretty common in the animal kingdom in general. The nymphs actually molt about six times in their lifespan, and adult Madagascar hissing cockroaches will never actually molt, which is also a very interesting fact. Madagascar hissing cockroaches produce a hissing sound that is accomplished by pushing air forcibly through a pair of modified spiracles, which are small openings through which air is taken into the trachea, which is how they make their noise. And they do really hiss. I will actually make sure to include a clip of one of them hissing towards the end of this video. The reason that they will hiss is because of defense. Obviously, it sounds kind of scary to maybe some predators that might want to eat them. They also hiss to communicate as well. They might hiss for, just to signal danger, or maybe they're just getting frustrated, or they use it for communication, and of course courtship, which is a form of communication. So they will do that when they're ready to mate. And what's interesting is you'll rarely actually hear females hissing, and even nymphs can hiss too, but they only really hiss when they're disturbed. So if I go to reach for one, she might hiss. Males are way more likely to hiss, though. I hear them hissing way more often than I do the females for sure. Males are very territorial, and they actually will defend themselves and their territory against other males. And that's another thing is that I do have a mixture of females and males within this enclosure that they're in, but they do just fine in captivity. They might every once in a while get into a little tussle, but honestly, they live pretty harmoniously together in their enclosure. The Madagascar hissing cockroach will actually eat decaying matter, vegetation, fruit, and rotting wood. I typically give them a mixture of different things. I try and give them a mixture of fresh fruit or vegetables, and of course, I give them leaves in there that I actually purchased from a pet store specifically for the purpose of giving to my critters that do eat stuff like that. So they will actually consume that. And I give them actually calcium stuff. So it's a cricket quencher, which is calcium fortified, and it is mainly for crickets, but the roaches can eat that too. And I will actually give them jelly cups, which are typically for other critters, but I will give them to the Madagascar hissing cockroaches as well, and they absolutely love them. Known species of Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and of course, hence the name, they are from Madagascar, which is off of the African mainland. I own, of course, two different species of Madagascar hissing cockroaches. The most common one, as you can see here, and I also own Halloween Madagascar hissing cockroaches, which, in my opinion, are absolutely gorgeous. I do hopefully plan to actually introduce another type of Madagascar hissing cockroach to my colony eventually as well. So, Madagascar hissing cockroaches can actually scale smooth glass. So, one way to keep them from getting up to the lid of their enclosure, which there is a lid on their enclosure, is to put down petroleum jelly or anything that is similar to that that's safe for them but cannot get across. Um, I actually put a very thin layer around the very, very top of their enclosure and they cannot get past it. And of course, I always make sure that it's still there so that way I don't have any potential escapees, especially the babies are very, very small. So I make sure that they definitely cannot escape their enclosure. At mature size, a Madagascar hissing cockroach can be between 2 to 4 inches, and that makes them one of the largest species of cockroach. And of course, I know that most people will be wondering about either the smell or the cleanliness of the Madagascar hissing cockroach, and actually, they are one of the most cleanest creatures and pets that you can possibly keep. They are very, very clean. There's really no smell unless, like, you have rotting food in their enclosure. At that point, I would recommend taking it out. But other than that, they honestly smell like very natural, almost like if you go outside after a rain or if you smell like dirt or anything like that. It smells very natural, very clean. They don't really have a smell. They're excellent, actually, pets because they really just don't require a lot. And they don't carry some kind of smell. Plus, you never actually have to handle them technically. They're not like a dog or a cat that needs social interaction. They don't really need that from people. So all in all, they make excellent pets for all kinds of different reasons. And I think the number one reason is just the lack of smell and honestly the lack of true like care that they need. Obviously, I keep their enclosure clean and I make sure they stay healthy and I go the extra mile when it comes to my own pets, but they honestly can be left alone for quite a long time. I do mist them as well to keep their enclosure very humid. So that way, because we're talking they're from Madagascar, it's not exactly like a hot or dry environment. So I do make sure that they stay misted. But honestly, they don't really require a lot and they don't smell that bad. So, I mean, that's pretty good, right? Another really interesting fact is their lifespan. They can actually live between 2 to 5 years in the wild and potentially longer, about the same length in captivity. If you're wondering how to actually sex a Madagascar hissing cockroach, there's actually a few different tells to look for. Males have slightly thicker antennae, and they also have horn-like protrusions on their head, and I will definitely be showing you that at the end of the video. And the females have a smoother like head, and their antennae are also thinner, and the females are actually larger than the males. Another way to tell the sex between a male and a female Madagascar hissing cockroach is actually the abdominal segment underneath their rear end. And it's a little bit harder to explain that just by talking, but I don't think I can show you, but I will try and show you towards the end of this video how to do that. Just like with house roaches, when you turn on a light and they all scatter, Madagascar hissing cockroaches also really do not like the light, and that they live where it's usually darker or in darker spaces. That's why you can currently see that there's very little light. I actually have a light on in this video to show you what's going on. Normally it's actually quite dark where they're at, and they prefer it that way. One way, and actually a very common way, to keep Madagascar hissing cockroaches as pets is actually via a tote. You can just set up a tote. You can make sure it has airways. Of course, that can involve cutting or drilling holes, and many other different ways you can do it to ensure that they have, high enough humidity and that the temperature stays fair. But they do prefer the dark, so it's actually a really good enclosure, especially if you're a first-time owner and you don't want to invest in a aquarium like I have here. A tote works wonderfully. It's honestly a great habitat for them. You can put in natural stuff. You can put in just honestly eggshell cartons, and they'll be completely content and happy. I prefer having an aquarium because I do enjoy seeing them. I do enjoy interacting with them. But honestly, a tote is a great enclosure, and it's actually incredibly cheap and significantly better, really overall, for especially new beginners getting into the hobby. I recommend a tote. As far as their bedding and that is concerned, I use a mixture of leaf litter, sphagnum moss, and cocoa fiber. You can use pretty much like you can use wood chips, you can use moist peat. As long as it's it can hold a little bit of moisture. I personally recommend that. That's just my personal opinion about as far as like bedding is concerned. It just keeps moisture a little bit easier. Um, they can actually be in temperatures up to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. 70 degrees and lower is a little, it's a little here and there. They can live with it. They might get a little bit sluggish. They won't die, but they definitely like it a little bit more humid and a little bit more warmer. With the temperature in mind, again, you have to remember where they're from. It can actually exceed over 100 degrees Fahrenheit in their natural habitat. So they can live in fairly warm temperatures, but as long as you're generally comfortable in your home, typically they're going to be okay and comfortable as well. I've been keeping Madagascar hissing cockroaches since I was in high school when I first got into it. So I am 37 now. I definitely have much more success when I keep them at a temperature which I am comfortable in staying in. If you like your overall temperature inside your home a little bit more cooler, there is actually really good ways to keep your tank or aquarium or whatever you want to keep your Madagascars in. You can actually use a heating mat, and that works pretty okay as far as temperature is concerned. It can release quite a substantial amount of heat, so it's pretty decent as far as like keeping their temperature up. You don't have to do this. I just, again, if you're going to keep them, keep the temperature a little bit more reasonable. You don't have to go too high, but you don't have to go obviously super low either. But if you really are not comfortable with higher temperatures in your home or whatever the case may be, I just recommend you getting a different animal at that point because they really do prefer it to being warmer. And how I generally do it, because sometimes it does get cool here, I will just warm up some water and make sure that it's not obviously boiling hot, but I will basically give them a nice humid misting, which actually does help keep their temperature up in their aquarium. One thing that I would like to add here towards the end of the video is that they can actually be fed so many other things that I didn't mention previously. And one of those things that I forgot to even mention is that they can eat literally dog food, cat food, fish flakes. They can also eat other things as well that you may not even realize. Like, you can actually feed them things that you would normally feed other animals, and they will definitely eat it. I've actually given them dog treats. I've given them dry dog food. I have actually given them some wet food that the cats wouldn't really eat, or that was just not really great for them. And just all kinds of other things. I definitely recommend looking them up if you're interested in owning them. The unfortunate thing is, and then I will cover here in just a moment, is that they are not allowed in all states. In Florida, it is actually illegal to own Madagascar hissing cockroaches, and some states like California and other states require you to have a permit to own them or to ship them outside of the state. Some places you're allowed to own them as long as you purchase them within the state. Some places just have different laws, and it's best to look up the individual laws for your particular state. Where I am at currently, it is perfectly legal to own them. Another interesting thing I really want to point out is that the roach that's next to the female is actually a dubia roach. And I have a few in this enclosure. They're fine to live with them because there's plenty of adequate food for them. Normally, I would not do this unless like, the situation was different. But it's from a previous situation, but they are fine because there's a lot of food source in there for them. So they don't have to like fight, or one doesn't get more or less than the other. So they're fine. But this is the end of the video, and as you can see, the Otheca is almost completely inside of her now, and eventually she will give birth to the babies. I do have a few pregnant females in here, and I do check on them every day and make sure that everybody's doing very well, and so far everybody's doing pretty good, so I'm pretty pleased with this, and it's exciting to see that she's pregnant. Now, in the next couple of minutes here, you'll actually get to hear a male Madagascar hissing cockroaches hiss. There's no video of the male, but a picture so you can get an idea what the male looks like. If you have any further questions, feel free to ask.